Anesthesiologists of Reddit, what was something you want forget hearing from someone that I had an ovarian cyst removed a year ago and woke up from the anesthesia saying hand please, and making grabby hands with both my hands until the nurses finally came over and held my hands for about 5 minutes while I just smiled and tried to go back to sleep. I had done that in a decade. I used to do it to my dad all the time as a kid to express that I wanted to hold his hand while I slept. Aw, that's so cute. I recently had surgery for endometriosis, and I did the exact same thing. The nurses nicely held my hand before setting it back on the bed once I calmed. Apparently this lasted for 15–20 minutes until I realized they had tucked the stuffed animal I brought under my arm and that I could hold it. They put bandages on it in the same place I had them. I'm 24, but because of COVID I had to be alone and a stuffed animal was the best. The rabbits, or imgur, come or a dizerosi. Can I tell an ambient story? It fits the spirit of the question. My mom worked the night shift for 15 years and couldn't sleep during the day, so I was maybe 12 or so at the time. One day, she poked her head into my room when she should have been sleeping with the most zonked out just opened my door, stared at me like a zombie, then shuffled away. She must have done the same thing to me little sister, 8, because she came into me room. We found my mom in the kitchen, sitting on the bench at the table in a daze. I grabbed the camcorder because this was too weird. We tried to get her to go to bed, but she refused until we got her a cup of milk. We did, but she didn't drink it, just stared at it. So we helped her up and told her we were taking her to bed. She refused again and would only agree if she could put on her slippers. Fine. We walked her to her slippers, but she claimed she couldn't wear them because she only had 2 slippers but 4 feet. I told her no, she's got 2 feet like everyone. She got irritated because she could obviously see 4 feet, like a dog, and she was. So we told her to put 2 of her feet in and go barefoot with her extra feet. She started doing a weird shuffle jump, trying to get both feet into her slippers. Eventually, we managed to get her to bed. She remembered none of this when she woke up hours later. Luckily, I had the whole ordeal on tape, which she refused to watch out of embarrassment. She never took Ambien again. My boyfriend at the time had just gotten his wisdom teeth removed on the ride home with his man. He answered it and just starts talking away. Whoever it was on the other side could not pause. But man, he had a lot to talk about and they apparently didn't hang up. After about 5 minutes of this unintelligible phone conversation, he looks at me and says, "You, if I put it to me ear, and the whole time it's been the Walgreens pharmacy automated notice, simply probably for the best. I'm glad I'm not the only one who calls it a robot." I went to the pharmacy once and they asked a question about auto refills or something, to which I casually replied, "Oh, your robot called me." They were very confused, even after I explained what I meant. It's just more fun to call it a robot. I ask a patient after surgery how he feels. He opens his eyes, stares me dead on and says with me fingers. Then he goes right back to sleep. This man has at least 2 kids. That's some next level dad joke commitment there. I aspire to be him. I'm an anesthesiologist. The best story was a 40-some-year-old woman for appendectomy said while I'm giving the propofol to induce anesthesia. She said, "Oh, I don't remember it tasting like that before slurred." I said, "What does it taste like?" Since propofol doesn't usually elicit a taste reaction. She almost yelled "D's nuts" and was promptly under anesthesia thereafter. There have been other stories, but this one has the entire or staff rolling laughing for minutes. Priceless Alma. This was a planned strike. Honestly love hearing that these nuts jokes transcend generations. This, this right here, us me favorite. That lady is an absolute legend. My aunt got rushed to the hospital for abnormal heart rate. But it wasn't a heart attack or stroke, but her heart was going at like 200 beats per minute. They had to put her under so they could shock her heart back to normal. As they retaking her under, the doctor says something like, "Okay, in it goes," and she immediately. He just shrugged and said, "That's me wife for ya." Woo, 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 woo. I like your aunt. That's gonna be me totally. I made a that's what she said while being booked into jail. Ma. I woke up from gallbladder surgery confused as to why my mom wasn't there. I was. The nurse informed me I had cussed out my entire family and they sent them home and put me on a no. Another time, I woke up and made horrifically inappropriate jokes. I told a nurse she was pissing me off because I didn't like the automatic blood pressure cuff. Another, I refused to listen to follow-up orders until I had a chicken sandwich. My negotiation. I'm a real treat after anesthesia, but I get a lot of this done at the office me mom works. This is a huge fear of mine, that I'll have surgery and turn into a raging arsehole when coming out. I refused to listen to follow-up orders until I had a chicken sandwich. We always wondered. The ones I got before me lasik would be been useless if my friend and chauffeur for the day had. I'd already taken the huge Valium, which kicks in usually early form. All I remembered was standing there nodding agreeably. But I was so mellowed out, I'd have cheerfully consented to being beheaded. One summer I was home from college and my dad needed me to pick him up after his very first colonoscopy. He was nervous, so I got there early. The nurse called me back and asked me to help wake him up, as they were having some trouble. I go back and am making chit-chat. "Oh, Dad, you got those cool booties on?" He raised his head a little bit to look at them, then yelled, "Booty call?" He is a Presbyterian pastor. A moment I will treasure forever. Have you told him this, or is it a secret you re-hanging on to? After an operation on a patient's neck, he woke up and yelled then grabbed his junk with both hands and was like a "thank God it's still there," then immediately passed out again. One time, a male biology student in his early 20s with a stuck kidney stone, was being put under for surgery. Just as the anesthesiologist was pushing meds and telling me to count back from 100, I looked up at him in a drugged but focused gaze and said, "You re so pretty. You could be in movies then." Blackness. Anesthesiologist was like a grizzled 70-year-old hunched-back looking guy with a lopsided grimace and more ear. Hair than head. Hair great duck. Though. Very last thing I remember hearing was the nurses cracking up laughing. It was a smallish medical community and I knew some of the people there, so as a joke somebody snuck his headshot into me chart. I like to think it was him gunning for a second career though. Edit. Due to the rather sensitive nature of the surgery, he hit me with a wallop of midazolam on the way into the so I was already pretty juiced by the time they started. I had a similar experience during me first tympanoplasty. The doctor or surgeon was really attractive. I was a teenage girl. I jokingly called him Dr. Ahunk. I told me mom during one of the surgery appointments it rhymed with his actual surname. Apparently one of the nurses overheard me. She literally waited until I was high as hell and waiting to be put under, and then asked me, "Hey, can I tell the other nurses what you called the doctor?" She didn't even have to tell them because it blurted out, "Yeah, he's super cute, Dr. Ahunk," before passing out. My husband had to undergo a colonoscopy, and when he came around he started aggressively grilling the staff about Abraham Lincoln. He isn't a historian or anything. He works as a business analyst and knows next to nothing about Abraham Lincoln. Bonus story. One time he took Ambien and got super fucked up. Initially told me that he couldn't walk up the stairs to bed because he was a transformer and his legs had turned to wheels. Finally got him upstairs and he made the observation that if peach trees could sing to each other like whales it would be beautiful. I bet they would sing a deal. Then he burst into tears. He made the observation that if peach trees could sing to each other like whales it would be beautiful. I bet they would sing a deal. Then he burst into tears. This is beautiful, and I unironically love it. If peach trees could sing to each other like whales it would be beautiful. I bet they would sing a deal. Then he burst into tears. Please tell him that I agree would be beautiful, and they would definitely sing like a dale, and that I am kind of teary-eyed thinking about it completely sober. Man, Ambien is crazy. My dad would take it and fall asleep in his recliner. Ivy had entire conversations with him that he would remember. Best is my ex-mill, who took Ambien regularly. She would sleep, walk to her car, sleep, drive to McDonald's about 2, get a bunch of food, sleep, drive back, eat the food in the kitchen and leave the trash on the table, then go back to bed. When she actually woke up in the morning, she would scream at her daughter ex-lil sis for stealing her car and going to McDonald's. I have no recollection of this, but according to me mom, when she met me in the recovery room after wisdom tooth extraction, I was very eager to tell her something, but me mouth was full of guys. So they gave me a pen and I wrote something on the surgical bib. Hours later, when I was back in reality, she asked me what was with the meos. Mycin. I had no idea what she was talking about, so she showed me the bib. It said meo 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 meo, the meo mix theme. This was stuck in my head for a good solid decade, and now it's back. Not that I'm complaining. Why did I make sure to count for the appropriate amount of meo? My personal story. When I had me wisdom teeth out, I kept holding a fake camera up to me face, saying you re-beautiful, and making clicking noises while I was under. I'm a professional photographer, and my dental surgeon ended up booking a session with me a year later. Never miss a chance to network. Your surgeon wanted more of those good vibes. I had a guy nefarious character, heavy drug use history, who got a bunch of ketamine, probably too much in recovery, from one of the other docs to help with severe pain after his abscess drainage. I was asked to check on him in an hour as the other doc had left for the evening. Went over and saw him in the cold, drooling on himself, but otherwise fine. So I left and came back an hour later. First thing he says to me is, "Why did you do that to him?" I asked him what he meant, and he said, "You don't understand. I lived another man's life in there." I apologized and asked him, "How long do you think you were in there?" For reference, it had been something like an hour and a half or 2 hours since his trip began. I don't know, maybe 30 years. I was speechless. I apologized again, made sure he knew he was safe, made sure he wasn't hurting, and made damn sure he knew it wasn't me that did it to him. Told her patient time traveled 30 years in whole. I've heard of people who have dreams that are so vivid that they live entire lives in them. People who it fucks them up when they wake up because they have memories of their kids who were never real. Did he learn to play the flute? Guy lived another life for 10 years while in a comops. Or war. Reddit. Com or roar as credit or comments or sevenerk or have you ever felt a deep personal connection to orc 3 for a 3? Apparently, when I had surgery to remove me Bartholin's gland, a gland at the entrance of the vagina that can get an abscess, they asked me how I felt as soon as I was awake. I said I felt like I got fucked by an elephant and then I wanted to hug everyone. Wait. Would you be willing to explain why you had to have surgery to remove this gland? This feels like something people should know about. I have had a vagina for a solid number of years and did not know that this was a thing. I'm glad you re-okay. Kind of on topic. When my mom woke up after having a stroke, the doctor asked if she recognized the people in the room. She got me sister's name right, called me brother's name, and smiled real big at me stepdad and called him a shoal. Called me brother's name and me dad and several others do that all the time and none of them had a stroke. Was he an a shoal? Doctor. Yep, she's going to be oak. Patient here. Came out of anesthesia and heard goaties, somebody that he used to know playing in the recovery room. I asked me so why they were playing it at like tanks the normal speed and the nurse just goes so she's not ready to go home yet lol. Lol, is that a thing? I guess your perception must be so delayed or intermittent that it plays fast in your mind. Man, that was the exact song they were playing when I was under local getting me wrist tendon stitched back together after almost cutting through it, and I still get cold sweats when I hear it. Pity, I used to like that song. How about the other way around? I took me mom for her surgery on her right shoulder and her anesthesiologist was this very dignified, solemn older Persian gentleman. My mom told him, just so you know, I wrote directions on myself to make sure you get it right. She was joking around, but she actually does this. Old Batley nurse habits de hard. He looked her straight in the eye and said deadpan, great. So let's get started on your left knee. Totally got her. It was great. Huh? Took my dad for some kind of testicle-related procedure. I didn't ask for details. He told me to mind my own business. I just knew he was walking around like he'd been horseback riding too long. They have him partly sedated in pre-op area and I was allowed to wait with him. Poor anesthesiologist comes over and my dad told him at least 10 times what side it was and he better not touch the side or he'd get his ass kicked. My dad was in his late 70s then, grew up in the South then career military. He never cursed. Never was rude. The draw was cool and just said oak. Yes, it's very clear what side but you can hit me if make a mistake. In college I needed arthroscopic surgery on my right knee. The day before the operation, I had an appointment with the surgeon, and his nurse spent a lot of time posturing and poking me left knee. I didn't know if this was just to get a baseline or something, but after a while I said, you don't know you are operating on my right knee, right? Flustered, she explained that her chart said left knee and she would correct everything. Day of operation, I'm on a hospital bed in me gown and a different nurse comes in and reads her chart and starts poking at me left knee again. I kind of laugh and explain what happened yesterday, and she says everything. Still says left knee, but shall take care of it. Then she whips out a ballpoint pen and writes on my right knee, right knee. I suggested that maybe that might seem redundant, and if they are operating on the left, they'd miss it, so she then writes wrong knee on my left. As I am wheeled into the operating room, the anesthesiologist makes an introduction, explains what he'll be doing, and when I get a chance, I tell him about the mix-up, just in case 2 different nurses failed to correct it. He says me chart says left knee, still and as I go under. The last thing I see is the staff moving equipment to the other side of the table. I once came out of anesthesia after an endoscopy, which can cause you to burp pretty much the whole day, and me fiance asked, "How are you doing?" I measured and answered as though she said, "What are you doing?" I so sure My answer was little burps, said very confidently. I also started crying on the way home because I wanted one egg. I never crave eggs. Is it common to get sedated for an endoscopy? In the I had mine fully awake. They sprayed my throat with a numbing spray and told me not to swallow me saliva because it could choke. I replied, "Got it," and proceeded to immediately choke on me saliva lol. Not an anesthesiologist, but a story from me mom about me while I was under. I had a double jaw surgery scheduled for April 21, 2016. The procedure was fine. I remember waking up halfway through it and getting more anesthesia. After the surgery ended, they put me into the hospital room to let the drugs wear off of me. I don't remember much of this time, so this comes from me mom, but she was sitting in the room with me, watching the news on TV. I wake up and am quiet for a little bit before I start sobbing. My mom thinks it's because me mouth hurts. My mouth is wired shut so I actively can't correct her with words and have to try and write out on paper what I'm crying about. The news was broadcasting about Prince's death, and I was hysterical over the fact that I apparently killed Prince and that I had to turn myself in. I was working when I got a text from my little sister. "I'm sorry your husband is dead." She lives in Florida, me, Arizona. I got married recently and she's never talked to me husband. I was so busy at the time, but had to stop and was freaking out. Text her back, "What?" She said, "Prince is dead. I was in love with him my whole life. With him, we whole love." But I was thinking me real husband was dead. I still cried, though. I need to get me wisdom teeth out, and I am extremely scared of admitting to a heinous crime I've never committed and being taken seriously. I was told after surgery I said I love dogs and I want to eat the Taliban. At least you said it correctly. Solid platform to run on. Hey, those are two very related thoughts that many of us have on a daily basis. This guy I was dating, he asked me to take him to get his wisdom teeth removed. He told me that anesthesia dosed affect him a lot and we were supposed to go on a road trip the next day. So anyway, he gets wheeled out of the dentist by an old nurse. I'm behind the driver's seat and I see him smacking his lips, looking up at the sky. She opens me car door and he said, "I love her, I love her." He then proceeded to ask me to marry him several times. He tried to pull out his guys and I told him stop and he said, "Man, this bitch is bossy." Then he wanted a milkshake. I would suggest a place and he would scream no. Finally we agree on a place and he tells me he'll give me directions. I drive for 15 minutes before I ask him what we're doing and he said he has no idea. We're in the drive-through and he says, "I have something for you." I swear I thought he had bought me a ring the way he had been proposing for last hour. It was his newly extracted teeth. They let me keep them. "I want you to have them." He lived on base at the time and was yelling at the gate while they checked his ID for them to hurry up. I finally get him to his room, in bed. He's happily eating his milkshake with a spoon. His mouth was a mess of blood and milk shake. He asked me for a kiss. I gave him a peck. We're married now. Edit. Woo. Thanks for all the love, y'all. He's just as sweet when he's not sedated too, so I'm a lucky girl. Ah, so you accepted his teeth proposal. A wise choice. What is it with wanting a milkshake right after wisdom teeth are removed? My 15-year-old daughter also wanted one. Milkshake blood just dosed sound very good to me. My aunt, who notoriously despises fast food, old Mexican lady whose food is as good as it gets, woke up and looked at me uncle and said, "Are you the sexy man that's gonna take me to McDonald's?" If you knew her, you would know that she would never say that. She has never lived it down. Did the sexy man get her some McDonald's? I don't know how to explain to others that this is the kind of swagger I aspire to exude at all times. My mom woke up from dental surgery, and when we were leaving the surgeon's office, he gave her a goodie bag with floss and a toothbrush and stuff. And the whole way home she kept asking if she could eat the candy that the dentist gave her. Every time I told her there was no candy, she looked so heartbroken, like a little kid when their goldfish teas or something thin we stopped at on the way home, and she wandered off. I found her in the candy aisle holding a giant bag of fun-sized candy, and when I told her to put it back on the shelf, she dropped it on the floor and galloped away laughing at me. Buy her some damn candy, some. Oh, how the turntables. My husband woke up from anesthesia after a colonoscopy just after the doctor walked in. He did see the doctor and told me no blowjob for you, then fell back asleep and ripped a big fart. The doctor looked at me and busted out laughing. He said not to be embarrassed. People say the weirdest things, but this one had remember. Just out of curiosity, do you own or operate a penis? The farting is always fun after a colonoscopy. They literally blow gas into your colon to inflate it. Insufflation. Afterward, what got put in must come out, loudly and long. As I put someone out for a colonoscopy one time, the patient said, "You're cute. Are you gonna see me butt?" Then she was out. Edit. For those of you asking, yes, for colonoscopies, we typically use deep sedation. This is in the US. 99. 9 of the time this means propofol, the Michael Jackson drug. Most of us will give some lidocaine through your if first. This helps prevent the burning sensation in your if. That propofol can sometimes give, and follow it right up with propofol to knock you out. Almost never need analgesics like fentanyl. Oh man, this brings back the embarrassing memory of being out of it enough during a colonoscopy to ask my doctor, "What made you decide you wanted to look at butts all day?" But unfortunately not out of it enough to forget about it later. As I was getting sedated for my vasectomy, the last thing I remember is thinking the anesthetist was pretty cute. 14 years later, I still get self-conscious thinking about whether or not I vocalized those thoughts as the aesthetic took hold. Edit. Seems I was lucky to get the option to be put under. Lucky to be in Australia and have a good specialist who gave me options at US. Hats off to those of you doing it under local. Ill pass. After me colonoscopy, the nurses gave me some tissues and told me to wipe me butt area before I got dressed because there was lube on it from the procedure. I yelled, "Oh, that's fine," amused to it. And you just celebrated 30 years. When coming out of it from a colonoscopy, the doctor said that they got the pictures they needed. Apparently, I replied. Oh, good. Was I smiling? I was under general anesthesia to get me gallbladder removed. As I was being wheeled back through the double doors, there was agent to screen that listed the surgeries going on. I was way too loopy to actually read it, but I swear I saw elbow ectomy and started hysterically laughing over the idea of removing an elbow and being left with a floppy arm. Apparently what I actually said was elbow jello and then passed out. Elbow Jello, great band name. This one made me audibly laugh. A little girl was going under, and she was holding her mother's hand. She reached out for my hand with her other, and as she was going out she joined mine with her mother's and said, "You would be a nice daddy." I probably went beetroot red as I blushed. Leo, my daughter, does this same shit with her Krav Maga instructor and has like 12 years younger than me. It's so embarrassing. She does have the excuse of being on drugs though. She just really likes that instructor. Well, are you? So you married the mom? Right. Right. Apparently when I was going under I told the anesthesiologist, "Don't mess this up. I know where you work." Did they mess it up and have to pay the price? Or did you successfully threaten them into performing a perfect operation? Not the anesthesiologist, but as a surgery tech working next to them. Patient woozily. "Doc, will I still be able to integrate after this?" Gas passer. Integrate. Like what? Patient. Like the sum of F's from October when gas passer pushes more milk of amnesia. What's the integral of X? X more drugs. What's the integral of X? Yeah, we're good to go. Can I still integrate? Is definitely my how drunk am I? Internal examination.